Hello there, my name is George Carrette, owner and operator of EcoQuiet Lawn Care since 2014. I initially studied horticulture at UMass Amherst School of Agriculture because I was really into the environment, was interested in advanced food production to help the environment. But then when I got out, I realized the biggest impact I could possibly make was actually going into something that I saw was a problem: lawn care. There are millions of acres dedicated to lawn. In fact, it's the biggest crop in the United States by acreage. And so when I saw that and all the pollution associated with that, I thought there was a better way. A friend told me about electric tools and how they could be better and how it's a possibly good business idea. And I said, that's the one I want to do. From that point on, I was 100% invested in becoming as electric as possible and as eco-friendly as possible. Along the way, I learned that there's great noise aspects of this too, that it makes people happier and it's actually a better product in a lot of ways, which is not something you always find with environmentally friendly things. It's not like food that tastes like cardboard. It's something that's actually better in all ways. Now, through this, we're going to go and talk about the environmental impacts, the health impacts, and also demonstrate some different tools and tell you the ins and outs about electric landscaping. So, the current state of electric landscaping is pretty meek. There's not many other electric landscaping providers. In fact, it's only one in every 1,400 landscaping companies. And that only rolls up to a couple of dozen at this point. All while this is incredibly important and a polluting issue. Before, this wasn't possible to even do. Mainstream lithium-ion batteries have came onto the market that are actually cost-effective enough to go and do the things that we need to do. Before, a battery this size could have cost $10,000, and that's just not going to work. At this point, it's getting more and more prevalent, and there's natural forces that are pushing people towards electric landscaping. One being legislatively, there's multiple different towns that are pushing for gas leaf blower bans. There's also just the consumer wanting a quieter and more environmentally friendly product. And also, the electric tools are becoming more and more cost effective. There's a point where you couldn't get almost any performance out of electric leaf blowers. When I started, my electric leaf blower was about probably 13 newtons, which is a measurement of force. Now, my leaf blowers are about 23 newtons, so that has almost doubled the performance over what is relatively a short span for technology. The environmental impact of gas-powered tools is on multiple different levels. While electric lawn care and electric tools actually have relatively controllable pollution sources, being electricity from the grid and the actual cost of manufacturing, which there are tight regulations around to make sure manufacturers clean up their junk and don't put unburnt hydrocarbons and other pollutants in the atmosphere. There aren't that many regulations around small engines. Small engines can have gasket leaks. They can have oil that's spilled every time you go fill up your actual oil to do oil change. Maybe that's not disposed of properly. There's just all these different elements besides the CO2 and besides the unburnt hydrocarbons that are just impossible to quantify. Now, at the same time, the amount of CO2 that is emitted is about 16 billion pounds per year. And then you actually go and take that and you look at the unburnt hydrocarbons, which are EPA estimated 5 to 10% of total emissions. This is all while consuming less than 1% of total gasoline. So the thing I love about this industry is I'm taking an incredibly inefficient thing and making it efficient. Unburnt hydrocarbons are multiple different fuel-related molecules. There are molecules like benzene, carbon monoxide, smog-producing chemicals that damage the ozone layer, and also things like formaldehyde that are just toxic on their basal level. There's also many different tars and other carcinogenic materials that are produced during this. I can't even list how many different unburnt hydrocarbons there are, because there's so many different ways a carbon chain can be disrupted by partial ignition. Unburnt hydrocarbons are toxic on a basal level. You can have benzene that can affect blood toxicity, and also formaldehyde that, as many know, is basically embalming fluid. These are very, very dangerous compounds, and some studies have shown to link them to cancer and other lung diseases. So really, when it comes down to it, not many people know that they could be potentially poisoning themselves and the people working on the actual landscape that they're paying for. So there are many tools that are electric that have actual power parity with gasoline tools, which is incredible because gasoline contains so much energy. This is, for instance, one. It's super quiet and can cut through branches that are 1 inch to 2 inches. This is about as much as you're going to get with any gas tool, and this has the benefit of not having to crank endlessly to get the thing started. You can just plug and play. At that point, it's more efficient. And this is a tool that I see a lot of different landscapers actually using, mostly the corded variant, but it's almost always superior because you'd only use a hedge trimmer a couple times a year, and that means it's not going to be fun to start. Here's another tool that has some serious advantages. So this is a mean green zero turn lawnmower, and it is so efficient that when you talk about maintenance, all you have to do is oil this thing and charge it, switch the blades out, clean out the deck. There's no dealing with carburetors. There's no dealing with engines that overheat because there's material on them. It's so much easier to go and maintain. And with that saves you money. This cost me about $1 or $2 of electricity to run all day with zero to no maintenance costs. Things break on it like anything, but really, if you're not going and hitting a huge amount of rocks and everything, there's very little to no cost associated with running these things besides changing the blades and electricity. This grease is almost free. Now, along with that, there's some other tools that, even though they're less powerful, when it really comes down to it, there's so much marketing advantages that it doesn't really matter to me, and I've never lost money any year. So this is a Oregon backpack leaf blower, and it's 59 decibels. And even though it's about 200 mile an hour, 525 CFM, which is lower than something like a Red Max, you get some benefits that might help you. You're never going to be constrained what town you're working in. In places like Newton, they have leaf blower bans. You're never going to be constrained on what hours you're working with. In most places, this is 10 decibels above ambient, or just about that. And legally, I could go and operate at night, which is ridiculous, but it's nice to actually be able to do sometimes, especially with fall cleanups. Also, yet again, I don't have to start and stop this thing when it comes to stopping on lawn. Sometimes you send out 2 guys and they're gonna do 20, 30 lawns. That's 20, 30 actions, starting and stopping. And especially with a leaf blower or old weed whacker, that actually consumes a lot of time. That could be 4 different tools that you're starting and stopping. And even if they're warm, they might not be performing that well. With these tools, you just go and do your work. And I've done probably 30 lawns by myself at one point, which is not fun, but possible. This leaf blower is so quiet that even in a warehouse, which acoustically, if you ran a Red Max leaf blower, you're gonna hurt your ears quite a lot. I can run this, and don't hear me at this point. It's a leaf blower. You know, it's not gonna be that quiet. But the whole fact is, if I was to run a Red Max,
you definitely would not hear me, and everybody here's ears would be hurting quite a lot.
This is actually a 4-stroke engine, right? It's a slice seeder. It's one of the tools. There are no electric ones that we have to use, but it's a lot louder. If this was electric, I would slap a battery in it and go. This is an electric chainsaw, and I've gone to jobs and they've said to me, they've come out to me and actually accusatorily yelled at me saying, "Why are you using a drill?" And I'm like, "I'm not, I'm using a chainsaw to cut down your limbs and trim your bushes." And they were very impressed by that. And again, it's actually one of the louder electric tools, but it's doing quite a lot of work. And if you had a actual 2-stroke gas engine, it's very, very loud. There's some really great aspects about that too. When you're up doing a little bit of pruning or going and doing work with a lot of people around you, if anybody needs to yell at you and get your attention, they can, because they can actually hear you. If you have hearing protection, if you have all this other stuff, people can't hear you and it can be very unsafe. So with this, it's safe. So this is an Ego electric weed whacker from the commercial line. So the great thing about these too, as long as everything's plugged in and you're ready to go, all you have to do is pick and pop. And yet again, this is one of the more quieter brands out there. It's sleek carbon fiber, which is nice and futuristic. And really when it comes to it, it still has the power to go and get through your grass and everything like that. And really, I have some electric weed whackers that have brush cutters and other things too, pole chainsaws, and they handle quite well. So yeah. Still gotta use eye protection. So these tools that you see here represent about 90% of what we do. There's times that we have to use our diesel tractor or a slice seeder once or twice a year, but it's really nowhere near the impact of the constant use of weed whackers, sometimes 20, 25 times a year for each property you go to. Leaf blowers, using them extended hours every single day, really throughout the summer and spring, fall. Some people even use them in winter. When it comes to lawnmowers, the sheer amount of gasoline these consume, especially like 25 horsepower Kawasaki engines, they can go, it's up down to 2 gallons an hour. Some people report that. So when it really comes down to it, you will go and save so much gas emissions with all these tools compared to go and using the gas equivalent. A big part of why people still use gas tools for most things is it's what they know. Every technological advancement takes a lot of one cost. None of these tools behind me are cheap. That's about $60,000 plus of batteries. So it's very, very expensive. And while I found a lot of people that are willing to go pay more for electric landscaping, some people just aren't. This is a highly competitive industry. And like I said, I've made it profitable every single year by just charging a little bit more in some places, and some places being competitive, but getting really tight groups of area. But this is a big step. So when it comes to seeing your electric landscaping company out there, I'd say be willing to pay a little bit more, because, you know, every little technological jump like that, the people that you're dealing with, they're going to be pioneers. And there's a lot of risk with that. That being said, like I said, I've never lost money any single year, and that's actually a lot more than a lot of landscaping companies can say. I think we tripled my revenue this year. During coronavirus, we didn't take any support from the government or the payroll protection loans or anything like that, and we still turned a modest profit while tripling our revenue. That's not very common. And that's mostly because we bought these new, incredibly quiet leaf blowers. So, with the way I see it, this will pay itself back for the pioneers that do it, and people that don't choose to do it will eventually get into it when it's price comparable. So yeah, that's why I think a lot of people are lagging. Furthermore, a lot of people even like the smell of gas in this industry. I hate to admit it, I kind of do too. You know, it's, for some reason it smells good. It's a smell of doing work. So I think there's a old-fashioned appreciation for loud tools that us landscapers actually love. And it's kind of funny, but it is what it is.
Thank you very much for watching. I hope you learned a lot about electric tools and the problems with gas emissions. And from here, if you're in the Middlesex area, maybe give me a call and everything like that. Or even if you're from other states, you have questions about this because you want to start your own electric company and other things like that, then please come forward. There's other resources we have too, like quiet communities and the American Green Zone Alliance that can help you towards that, or just give you more information so you can get educated about this subject.